Hey guys, here we are in Virginia Creepin' Outdoors Proving Grounds, also known as my backyard. Um, we had 10 inches of snow, 8 to 10 inches of snow, and I'm about testing my gear in extreme conditions. Typically, I'm not going to be out in snow like this, but if I ever am, I don't want it to be the first time. And since we don't really get snow like this, I went ahead and made the decision kind of late. It was already snowing. There was 2 inches of snow on the ground already. And I figured I'd go ahead and pull out my tent and give it a test. I threw it up in haste. It was about 9:30, somewhere in that time frame. I didn't use any external light, because I'm about testing your gear, knowing your gear well enough to be able to put it up in adverse conditions like dark, cold, panic. So basically what I've got here is I ended up putting a fly upside down. It's a Quest 2-man tent. I picked it up at Dick's Sporting Goods. The snow was kind of funny because it was really powdery and small, kind of like crystals. I was sitting there waiting for the snow, and then I finally figured out that that was the snow. So we'll go inside the tent here and show you the setup that I used, and we'll go from there. Okay, we are inside the tent. It's not very big, being a two-person tent. One of the decisions I had to make last night, with this being a 3-season tent, it's not really ideal for winter. A lot of this up here, from here up, is nothing but mesh. And when I was setting it up, the snow was kind of like small crystals, and it was able to pass through this mesh with no problem. So I had some decisions to make. With it being a 3-season tent, I didn't stake out the fly for a couple reasons. One is getting snow in the tent. As I was setting it up, snow was getting in the tent, so I really had to push it and get it up. And also, with the fly staked out, I would have had more space between that mesh and the fly. So I decided not to stake it out and just let the fly lay on the tent, because the fly only comes up to right here. There's not a whole lot of room between where the fly ends and the mesh starts, so there's not much overlap, and I wanted to keep it as enclosed as possible. So whether I would have paid the price for that or not, I don't know. I stayed in the tent from about 9:30 till about 12:30, and basically what I used is a wool blanket, standard military issue for the Navy. And for the sleeping bag, I used a military issue patrol bag, just the patrol bag, no bivvy, no nothing. So this is rated for 50 to 30 degrees, so it was not rated for that. But when they rate sleeping bags, it's usually for just the bag itself. No other insulation, no tent, no ground pad or anything. And when you're camping in cold weather, if you have a wool blanket, it'd be very easy to think, well, I'm just going to throw this over top of me. But if you have extra insulation, you want to put that underneath you. So I laid that out on the bottom of the tent, and used that as a ground pad, which would give this another 5, 10, maybe 15 degrees. From the experience, I ended up spending about 3.5 hours in the tent, and it was fairly comfortable. And about the biggest problem I had was, even with the wool blanket, I was still at the end of it after about 3 hours feeling the cold transmitting from the ground. I'm on 2 inches of snow already, so it was just starting to get at that limit to where I would have been pushing it. And I didn't plan to stay out all night because I didn't know if I was going to work the next day. So that's what I did. It was educational. I don't get to camp in this sort of conditions very often, and if I'm ever out, I don't want it to be the first time, which is why I like to test my gear in the backyard. So always test your gear. Go with the extremes. I could have used a warmer bag than this. I've got a 10-degree bag, and I'm sure I would have been plenty comfortable in that, and it would have been a good opportunity to test that. But oh well, another time. And I've used that one a couple times, and I know unless it's cold, you're going to cook in it. And I wanted to test this one, adverse conditions, push the limits, and see what it'll do. So being in the backyard, I can just go in the house, no harm, no foul. So it's always great to test your gear if you're into that sort of thing. So it's a pretty good tent. I'll go over it again later, and probably some of the other gear, but this is more about the experience, what I used, and my philosophy on testing my gear. So it was a pretty good test. I know what to expect. And another thing about the fly, when I put it on, the snow was making it through the mesh, so I ended up throwing the fly on. It was upside down, and it was more important to me to stay dry, so I just left it upside down because I knew I could do that. So there you go. If you have any comments, experiences, like, subscribe, comment, and we'll test some of this other gear later. And hope you found this somewhat educational, and thanks for watching.